Now, Prabhupada is like a mountain. Stillness. His senses are not, you know, I think I told you that I saw one video clip where somebody wanted to show me something on the clip, and they put it up fast forward, and there were all these devotees around, and they were all like this, and Prabhupada was just like this. So that's what the scene was like there. Prabhupada was like that mountain.
There was one occasion when we were flying from Singapore to Australia, and Hari Story was his personal servant at the time. They were seated up in the first class section, and I was seated in the back in the coach section, and the plane must have hit an air pocket or something, and it seemed to drop very, very quickly, maybe 5,000 or 10,000 feet, it seemed like. My stomach was in my head, that's all I could think of. And it was like going down a roller coaster, but it was a huge roller coaster because it just continued for about 5 or 10 seconds. And I remember getting up, and I was pretty shaken, although I was chanting at the time. And walking up to Srila Prabhupada in the front cabin and asking him if he was all right. And he looked like nothing had happened at all. And I asked Srila Prabhupada, "Are you okay?" And Srila Prabhupada said, "Yes, we can die at any time."
One morning we were driving, we always drove down Venice. And we always went to Santa Monica Beach. Once I told Prabhupada about La Brea, the tar pits, and we went over there, and he liked walking around there. But one morning, it's about 6 a.m., and not a lot of movement yet on the streets, and a biker who had a shaved head, looked like had a Harley chopper and everything, he was driving down Venice Boulevard, and he looked over, and he looked in the car, and I had a shaved head, and Prabhupada had a shaved head, and he had pretty much shaved head, and he looked like a gnarly biker, right? But all of a sudden he started staying with us. And then he went right behind us, and I was like a little concerned, you know. And he was kind of like signaling with us and trying to communicate with us. He followed us all the way down to the beach. He parked behind us and came up and asked if he could walk with us, you know. And Prabhupada said yes. And Prabhupada talked to me, and the guy just walked along, and after about halfway through the walk, he turned around and left us. And I was, many times I found that certain situations were provoking or intimidating, but Prabhupada was so in control, and it rubbed off a little bit. I was like, oh, what's this guy going to do? And then Prabhupada was, yes, you may walk with us, please come. And it was just, it was incredible. About halfway through, the guy left, and Prabhupada just didn't notice it and kept on going.
This particular day I'd been helping Shriti Kirti in the kitchen, and I used to help with making the milk sweets with pear and everything. So Shriti said to me, why don't you take Prabhupada's lunch up? And so I thought, oh, I was a bit nervous about that idea, but of course you were going to do it anyhow. So I walked up, and as I was walking up, I could hear this banging on the desk, of a fist banging on the desk. And I sort of hesitated to knock on the door at this particular time. I could hear Srila Prabhupada yelling very vehemently. I won't particularly say what he was saying to someone that was inside, so I wasn't sure. But anyway, I knocked gently on the door, and Srila Prabhupada says, come in. And so I opened the door, and Prabhupada immediately went into this very sweet, wonderful, gentle mood. He goes, Hare Krishna, prasadam, very nice, just put here. So I went and I put the prasadam there. And as I left the room, I looked at this particular friend that I had arranged. He'd been taken in by the schoolmaster and, you know, had absolutely wished I'd never arranged their meeting for him in any shape or form. And anyway, he went, as I went out, and Prabhupada was just so gentle and sweet with me and very kind. And then as I went and I closed the door, I could hear Prabhupada's fist going back on the door, onto the desk, yelling and yelling and yelling. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I mean, he's not really yelling, he's just chastising. He's chastising so they understand the seriousness of the situation, but he's not really, he's doing it with love, he's doing it with a complete, you know, an understanding for them, but also for them to understand how serious scriptural following is and how scriptural reference is. And so and with me, he was just, again, sweet and loving and very gentle. I wasn't in the hot seat, someone else was. So that was the situation. But it was very interesting to see how he just, you know, immediately, the moment the door closed, he was back on banging on the desk and back to being his fiery self. Like, you know, they always say that Prabhupada was like I think Radhanath Maharaj was saying he was like a thunderbolt or a soft rose, and he was being the thunderbolt. But, you know, the moment I opened the door, he went to the rose and then went right back to the thunderbolt again. So it was very interesting to see. It was all for our benefit, not that he actually felt anger.
We were with Prabhupada in his rooms. At this time, I think Prabhupada was seated on the Vyasasana, so it was a bit of a more formal darshan, I think. And Henry spoke up and asked something, and I'm sorry I don't remember exactly what he asked, but something about the names. And Prabhupada became very serious, very grave again. And he kind of snapped at him. You have a name. I have a name. Why are you denying Krishna his name? He's the Supreme Person. You know, certainly he deserves a name. And it went like that. And this man was quite crushed to be sort of reprimanded in that way. And he fell silent. And that was that for the darshan. But early the next morning, when Srila Prabhupada was taking his walk out towards the northwestern campus or out towards the Lake Michigan shore, he was walking out in that direction. Evanston wasn't far from Lake Michigan, really, that temple. He met Henry, because Henry had gotten up early and was also over that way. And Srila Prabhupada walked right up to him. Oh, Henry, how are you? How are you this morning? And greeted him by name and asked him how he was doing, and was so friendly that when Henry told me about this afterwards, he was just overwhelmed with appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. So I guess that's an example of how Srila Prabhupada could switch. One moment he appeared to be throwing thunderbolts, and the next moment flowers. Yeah. So really and truly the friend of everyone. But sometimes he has to be the surgeon and lance the boil, for instance.
So when it was over, I talked with, I think Shamsundar Mukund, or rather Nanda Kumara, were there. I said, maybe I should go over to Prabhupada's apartment just on behalf of the devotees and apologize. Because we all thought that it was the worst disaster day we'd ever seen as far as our service was concerned. So I got a ride over, and I asked Nanda Kumara, is Prabhupada still up? And he said, yes. He said, can I see him? I said, well, put your head in and see if he'll see you. And when I put my head around the door, and Prabhupada looked at me, and I said, can I come in? And he said, yes, come on. So I came in and I sat down at his feet after offering obeisances, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, on behalf of all the devotees, I just wanted to apologize because we did it so badly, and we know it was just so, we're sorry to have displeased you so much. Prabhupada smiled at me a little bit and he said, do not pay it any mind. I'm almost positive that's what he said, do not pay it any mind. And I was really amazed because he was as cool as a cucumber. So a question came to me. I said, and I knew from experience in India and other places never to refer to Prabhupada as an example of a pure devotee to his face. Because when I did it one time in India, he said, I am not a pure devotee, I am a rascal. With great vehemence he said it. Right, so I said, Prabhupada, can you answer me a question about the consciousness of a pure devotee? And he said, yes. Well, he said, ask. So I said, sometimes it appears that a pure devotee may be very angry or that he may be happy, right? And yet, how does that really affect him, right? Because I was thinking, now he doesn't seem upset even slightly, right? So Prabhupada answered like this, basically. He said, the consciousness of a pure devotee is very, very deep. He said, it is like the ocean. So the ocean, on the surface of the ocean, near the surface, there may be so many waves that are kicked up. But as you go down even a few feet into the ocean, you will find out it is very still. Right? He said, and I understood what he was saying immediately. So in other words, so he said, in this way, the consciousness of a pure devotee is so deep that nothing really disturbs it. He said, there may be some ripples on the surface, but underneath it remains very, very deep and still. And I said, is it like that even at death? And he said, yes.
It was in Vrindavan, the end of October, early November 1977. Prabhupada was preparing to leave. And I was sitting on the side of his bed, massaging his arms. Other devotees were massaging his head and feet. And at one point, his body started going through some contortions that seemed like he was in great pain. So I asked Prabhupada, are you in pain, Prabhupada? If he answered yes, then I would try to do something. He looked at me like, what kind of a question is that? He said, no. So Prabhupada was not affected. He was completely detached.